Hi, everybody. Welcome to In the Box, our hockey podcast here at DKPittsburghSports.com. I am Chris Bradford, Penguins beat writer, joined by our photographer, Mr. Matthew Sunday. Matt, how we doing?
What's up, Chris? We're wearing the golf gear, but we're still talking hockey, huh?
Yes, nice break in weather here. Definitely starting to feel like spring, but something's kind of missing because the Penguins no longer playing.
They're not, but it is indeed good to see you wearing some shorts and some polos lately. It's a good look, man. Get away from the shirts and the jackets of the ice rink.
I am certainly enjoying this. I haven't been so happy for spring in so long. I just obviously not the outcome the Penguins wanted. I get to wear shorts, but today, Matt, we're going to talk a little bit about the Penguins forwards. We're going to do 3 separate podcasts. This one will be dealing with the Penguins forwards and basically give them a grade overall how they've done. I did last week grading the players individually. Obviously, a lot of feedback on that, some good, some negative, but that's what happens when you give grades, and some people aren't always going to agree with it. We're looking at the Penguins forwards. I think overall, obviously the identity of this team is based on the offense, and particularly 3 core stars, Malkin, Crosby, and Kessel. So I would say overall, I would have to give it the flying colors, if you will.
Flying colors, yeah. I think they were pretty good. I think Phil Kessel had, just a monster first 2/3 of the year. Evgeny Malkin was just tremendous from start to finish, really. A couple lapses just based on when he got some nicks and whatnot. But really, the thing that you have to look at, though, and I'm not sure if you want to blame this on the forwards or the defensemen or just the team as a whole, is just the goal differential being down. That's not necessarily the Penguins just scoring less goals, but there's that responsibility that comes on that defensive side of the 100 feet there.
That other side of the rink.
Yeah,
side
of the
rink. Bad side of the rink. Yeah, obviously the Penguins are a team that likes to play in the offensive zone, and when they are in the offensive zone, they usually are pretty good. We mentioned Malkin and Kessel. The guy a little bit on the quiet side this year, at least by his standards, was Sidney Crosby.
At least goal scoring after seeing what he did the year before, just putting up the monster goal scoring numbers and going after the trophy. But seeing those numbers come down was different.
Yeah, he finishes with 89 points, the same as the year before. But it just felt so much different for him this year because, as you mentioned, the lack of goals. And personally, I'd like to see him at least crack the 30-goal mark because I think that's basically a 35-type goal guy is where I kind of think he's at his best at. For me, he's always the best playmaker in the league. I never thought he was a great goal scorer.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've actually described him kind of as the best playmaking grinder out there because of the way that he plays in the corners and he's willing to get a little dirty down there, and he just possesses the puck behind the net unlike anybody else in the league. So when he's doing those things but then also scoring goals, that's what makes him special. Obviously, he was going to have a little bit of a downtick when you look at what Phil Kessel was able to do this year specifically, because for a lot of the season when he was playing well, he's playing on a third line and they had that dynamic 3-line offense going. So the more that Phil Kessel's on the ice on a third line without Sidney Crosby, that means that Sidney Crosby's on the ice less, of course. Yeah,
so Kessel, obviously an interesting story because, I think for 2/3 of that season, I think you could make a case that he was the Penguins' MVP. Obviously, that wasn't the case because Malkin really tore up in January and February and continued that pretty well into March. But, Phil really struggled at the tail end of the season and was pretty much non-existent in the playoffs. He did have 8 points in 12 games, I believe it was. So don't quote me on that, please. But,
we know where he had 2 assists, though.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was on the ice, not in the press box.
Yes. And Phil Kessel, there was some speculation at the end of the season during Mike Sullivan's final address to the media. He was asked about Kessel in particular. I asked the question and wanted to see if he could clarify on the nature or the extent of the injuries to Kessel, and he gave the "it's not significant" line, and that sort of took off for a few days. There were some people wondering whether Kessel will be back. I believe he will. I think Daniel Sprong is the guy who's coming up in the system, and at some point will have a lot of the same attributes that Kessel will have in terms of just being a natural goal scorer. But I think if you're a team that's playing for right now, I think you have to have Kessel.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. And you and I were both there for the locker clean-out day. And, it was interesting to see kind of Mike Sullivan kind of just deflect that question a little bit. Did you expect a little bit more injury news there?
I think we all were, because when Jim Rutherford kind of was asked about it, and he's, first the players didn't say anything about it, and you were thinking, okay, well then they're going to let the general manager do it. Then when the general manager didn't do it, they're like, okay, well I'm going to ask the coach, see if he'll say, hey, Kessel had let's say an AC sprain or clavicle, shoulder, or something. It never did. So I don't think they want to make excuses, and I actually commend them for that. I can respect that they don't want to say and make excuses, but I think at some point, I think they underachieved a little bit this year. I'm not one of those people, Stanley Cup or bust, because it's so hard to win that trophy. But there were some reasons why they didn't get a little bit further, and I think injuries were a big part of it.
Yeah, you just like after the Flyer series, and you hear Couturier is dealing with the torn MCL, and you expect to hear those kind of things in that first media availability once everything's settled down. And the fact that we didn't hear anything like that from the Penguins, like you said, you can commend it, for not wanting to make excuses. But something was clearly, to get back to what you were saying about Phil Kessel, something was bothering him. And I don't think that you want to take the chance on him not returning to the player that he's been for the rest of his time with the Penguins and forgo him for next season.
Yeah, Kessel's obviously been a lot of speculation about him and kind of his mindset last year when Rick Tocchet was gone, and I'm sure it'll continue through the summer, but I expect he'll be back. But obviously more forwards than just the big three. There was the younger guys, Jake Gensel in particular. When I talk about the younger guys, I'm talking about Rust and Sheary and Gensel. And I think Gensel, again, showed he's one of the best playoff performers. But if he could merge regular season Gensel with playoff Gensel, that guy would be like a 40-goal scorer.
Well, he played a lot of games for his first real season, because you think about where he came up 2 seasons ago for the Cup run, and you look at the amount of games that he played down the stretch, and then his first true season in the NHL, and being on a line with Sidney Crosby, just expecting to perform at that level for an entire season. I think he will be just a dominant scorer in the league the longer and longer that he goes playing with Sidney Crosby, and I think we have to assume that partnership's going to remain. They sit next to each other in the room. They work out on the ice together before games. They pass back and forth like Sid used to do with Chris Kunitz. So I think that partnership's there to stay, and I think you can expect him to just keep trending in the way that he's been, I guess.
Yeah, that would be huge for the Penguins, and I agree with you there that 59 and 87, that they're going to be paired together for a long time to come. Another group. Connor Sheary, in that group of the 3 guys that we mentioned. Disappointing season for him. I know a lot of people were down, but he did score 18 goals, which, all things considered, isn't bad, but he had just 12 assists.
Yeah, we've talked about his streaky play, and it comes and goes in bunches, and it tends to come and go depending on who he's playing with. When Sheary's playing with Sidney Crosby, he tends to play a little bit better, but then he tends to lapse there eventually as well. So he's a player that, depending on the line that he's on, when he's not out there with other playmakers, you look and you're like, why is this guy even in the lineup? Because he doesn't create much on his own. He's never going to be that third or fourth line guy that, when you need him to just go create, that he'll do it. Now, with that said, we did see a couple flashes in the playoffs where he tried to take on 3 or 4 guys and get a goal when they needed it, but the key word there is try, because he didn't succeed in doing it. So
yeah, and I think he's going to be, at least talking with Derek Brassard, he was saying that he felt he had his best chemistry with Sheary. So obviously Derek Brassard, we haven't mentioned him yet. He's been kind of a big part of that forward group, or is going to be. Obviously wasn't much of one for the Penguins this season, hampered by a groin injury, just 6 games into his Penguins career, and then really limited in what he could do in the playoffs. But I think moving forward, I could see Brassard playing with Sheary on that third line.
Yeah, the Brassard situation is going to be interesting. Obviously, he spoke to dealing with fewer minutes playing with the team with Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby. So it'll be interesting to see next year how the Penguins get him involved more, try to get him out on the ice, even as he spoke to, being open to playing some wing if he had to. But I'd like to see him just develop into a third-line center that works for the Penguins. And I think that it was unfortunate, his injury, at the beginning of his time here, because it kind of set an awkward tone for him. He's a much better hockey player than than we saw and gave him credit for. And I mean, you and I both saw people all of a sudden the tide's turning. Everybody wanted Ryan Reeves off the team, and as soon as Derek Brassard wasn't performing, it's, oh my God, they paid so much money for him, and what's going on? Let's get Reeves back.
Yeah, and somebody's paying 40% of Derek Brassard's salary, so he'll be back. He'll be back for another season, and I suspect he'll be the Derek Brassard that the Penguins thought they were getting when they did acquire him. Fourth line, looking at that group, that was kind of an Achilles heel for him all season. Didn't get much offensive production from that group, no matter who was down there. Brassard was there at the end of the season in the playoffs. I think Zach Aston-Reese, I think he's probably better than a fourth liner, but I think on this team as it's currently constructed, I think that's where he's going to slot in at.
Yeah,
and I could see him doing some things down there.
We've talked about that before too, where Aston-Reese becomes the guy that he sees some of that time with either Malkin or Crosby, because those guys get more than their first or second line shifts in most cases, and Aston-Reese is able to be a winger for either one of those guys, and that affords him some opportunities to play more than a fourth liner. I think you see Carter Rowney probably he's probably going to go back up to what is it, Sexsmith? Is that the I mean, he's not going to go all the way home, but he's from pretty far from Pittsburgh,
yes, okay.
And he's not going to be in Pittsburgh. We'll put it that way.
I forgot the name of the hometown, but yeah, I don't see him coming back. But I think that would open a spot for Riley Sheahan. Obviously, I think Sheahan showed he could do more than be a fourth line center, but he's a hell of a fourth line center, and certainly great on the penalty kill and on the draws.
Yeah, I thought he had a pretty significant downtick there in the playoffs, but the time this season where he was playing with Phil Kessel and they were both clicking, man, he was as good as any third line center in the league for a portion of time. And I mean, he's a guy that they did rely on for the faceoffs, as you mentioned, in the playoffs at times. So I think having him out there as a fourth line guy is a significant piece of the puzzle.
No, obviously the depth of this team is going to remain at the center position and right down the middle. So, what would you give a grade?
A grade to the middle?
For the whole forwards, all 12.
Just because of the way that the team kind of failed in that goal differential category this year, and we were looking at them having a probability of not even making the playoffs, I'm going with a B.
A solid B? Not even a plus.
A solid B.
Oh, man.
I think that Phil Kessel was great. I think Evgeny Malkin was great. I think Sidney Crosby took a little bit of a turn south. I think that Jake Gensel could be better during the season, as we discussed. And that fourth line, man, you gotta account for them too. I'm sticking with the B. All
right, I'm kind of an easy grader, and I saw some commenters told me that after the individual grades. So you're going to sway me to go to. I was going to go with A minus. A lot of that based on the power play, but okay, I'll go B plus. I think that's.
You guys see how easily this guy's persuaded. Give me another 5 minutes. I'll be the angry man in the room of 12 Bradfords.
Oh man, okay. Well, don't turn over coffee cups on me, but I'll go with the B plus. Sounds fair. All right, next time on the next podcast, we'll be doing the defense core, and we'll be talking a little bit about that group.
For Chris Bradford, I'm Matt Sunday, and you've been in the box.